You're looking at my 20-ton Harbor Freight press. I bought this a long time ago. It was orange, and it sat in the shop for years. I used it 2 or 3 times when absolutely necessary. I had no idea how, if you made some improvements, how handy this thing could be. And I started watching YouTube, and I started seeing some improvements. What happened was, when I started out, it had a regular jack on it. And every time you'd take the work, you'd just start jacking it down, and then you'd get it close to the work, and then you found out you had to move it. So you'd take the little rod and you'd stick it in the pin. Excuse me. And then you'd readjust it. Then you'd have to jack it down again. And I thought, that is so ridiculous. So I wanted to get an air jack. And so that was one of my first improvements, was an air jack. I happened to find a used one someplace for $15, and yeah, pretty cool. Works great. Then I put a knob on it, so you don't have to reach for that pipe. Just put a knob on it one way or another. That particular one, I just kind of roughed it in with my lathe, and I welded it on. I took the pin out, took the O-ring out off of it, and then I welded it on, and then I put a new O-ring back on it, and then stuck it back in there. And then I only need this little short handle. That big handle, it's there, but I never use it. And then the next thing, I think one of the first things I did, actually, before I even put the air jack on, was this tang I cut off of another jack. Because you can't use the one up the top of the jack unless you invert. I don't know how you'd use it. Actually. You just can't hardly use it. And so I thought it'd be nice to have one, so I cut one off of another jack, or took it apart and got it somehow, and squared it up and welded it to this plate right here. And then I cut all the other stuff out of this piece of metal, this red piece. I cut all the stuff out of it so that this just goes through the hole. I had to put a new plate in the bottom. I put that plate in there because you want a nice tight hole for the bottom so you don't lose it when it's pressing. And then that gives you this adjustable, so you could take that down to the work if you need to. That's not as important with the air jack as it was without it, but it sure is nice even with the air jack. The next thing I did was the plate. When you've got it loaded up with stuff, it is just so stinking heavy that you have to take it off in order to move it up or down. And so I thought, I wonder if there's any tricks to doing that. And I found somebody on YouTube that put a trailer winch on it. And you can just jack it up with one hand. You see how that's going up? You just jack it up with one hand, and then, of course, my camera's in the one hand, so I can't remove the pin. But with the other hand, you can move the pin and then lower it down to the next thing, and that works really good. It's really awesome. The next thing I did is I put a caster on it. The way I put casters on it is I welded that piece of angle iron there to the original frame, and I overhung them the width of the caster so it has a little more stability, and just put it together. And then I put a tray in the hole there that was created so I could keep a few tools on it. And then I put a foot pedal. I don't know if you've ever used a foot pedal. That's pretty cool. And what I did to do that was I just bent that piece of aluminum there, so you can actually take it off and put it anywhere you want to. See how it just bent? I don't know if you can see it. And that's kind of a nice little setup. So you can have, when you're working on getting the thing spotted, you can have both hands, and then you can lower it down with your foot. You can have both hands. Okay. And yeah. And then that trailer winch, what I did was I just found a piece of metal. I used a shackle, but you can use whatever you want to. Then I welded one on each side and then put the bolt through it, put a piece of pipe through it, put the cable through it. The cable goes both directions, and it's just one piece of cable, so it's wound from the center. And here, I can. Let's see here. See how it is? It's just wound from the center there. Okay. Then those arbor plates that came with this jack, now with this press, they weren't very good. Now the newer ones, I heard that they're made out of plased steel, but the old ones were cast iron. And if you put any pressure on them, they just pop and they explode almost. And there's one, you can see I welded it back up, but I didn't trust it after I did that. And there's some plates that I found at a yard sale. But I had my sons cut me out a couple of plates from a piece of steel. And you can see those there. They don't have all the fancy cuts, but they have one cut. And they've done everything I've needed done so far. Then I wanted to bend some metal, and I started watching YouTubes on making a brake. And so I built that brake. It's a pretty simple design. Most of the guys use a spring below this thing to pick it up. And they have a spring on the jack also. The springs that come with this press are strong enough to pick up that anvil and this little table here. And so you don't really need either of those springs. I don't know if I'll ever put one on or not. I might, but the problem with having one on there, then you have to, I don't know. I'm not going to do it probably. I like it just the way it is. It works good. Swag Off-Road makes a beautiful brake, and I thought about getting one of theirs. And then I found my son had started building one, and he's kind of a machinist. He's a well driller, but he likes machining. And so he made that anvil for one he was going to build, and then he ended up buying a press that was already made. And so he gave me that anvil, and I thought, well, I already got the anvil, I might as well just make a press. And I had this sheet of 1/2-inch plate laying around. And he gave me a couple pieces of 3/8 angle iron. And so I just welded those down there. And if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it, you see that little, right down there, there's that one little piece of steel. That's a 1/16 inch thick piece of steel. I put it on the outside here, and the outside on the opposite piece of angle iron. And that gives me it gives me an 84-degree bend, actually. And so you can make it 90 if you want to. Whereas if you use a piece of angle iron like the Swag system is, you can't make a true 90 because of the spring back of the metal. You end up with 93, at least that's what the people say, 94 degrees. This one you can get a true 90 plus a little bit more than you want, so you have to be careful to stop in time. And but it's a 16th inch strip of metal I had laying around, actually, and so I just stuck it under the angle iron before I welded it in. And then you don't have to weld it as much as I did, apparently. I saw one guy, he built one just like this, and he used a 3/8 piece of steel for the plate, and then he used 1/4 inch angle iron. So that's kind of cool. That's not what I did, but I had this. So. And you'll see that is just sitting on the table is a 1-inch thick piece of steel, and it's just solid. I use this press for straightening out metal quite a bit. And so I thought I'd have a solid one. If I need to do something that needs to pop like a shaft out of a bearing, I'll take that off of there and put those arbor plates on. Or something along that line. And then, I don't know if I told you about my foot pedal. Yeah, I did. But anyway, I just like that. I just got that done. And cool. So, what happened with this press is, I made this video probably, I don't know, 8 times. And each time I would apologize for the one thing I was going to do and I haven't done yet. So now every single thing that I apologize for is done. And so you're getting the completed press. Almost anything on here, if you Google that particular aspect of the press, like say how to lift the table of the press, there'll be quite a few YouTubes that address that, and they'll do it more elegantly than I did it. Almost everything on here was free or cheap. I probably don't have $80 in the whole thing. So you can do it way more elegantly and more machinist-like if you wanted to. I just wanted a press to use in my shop. And I keep this part of the shop warm. At least I can warm it with my diesel heater. And so I like to be able to roll it in here with those casters, and then I can roll it back in the other shop to get it out of the way and just store it. So it's pretty handy. Yeah, so I hope I helped you. And if not, well, I don't know what to tell you. But I really like the press now. That is a piece of equipment, a tool that can be used. And it's funny because all that time, I got so much time in that thing, it's almost ridiculous. And I know when I kick the bucket and the kids sell this at a yard sale or whatever they're going to sell it at, they better get $200 for it. But anyway, I like the thing. And if you have one and you make some improvements to make it so that all the things that are frustrating you are removed, you'll like it too. Thank you.